Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is Sunday. It is an early one, 11 now. Obviously, the clock's gone forward. We lost an hour's sleep, which is no fun. So I hope you got your coffees ready. But obviously, today we've got Marc on. Thanks very much for coming on, buddy. And we're going to be talking a bit about Ten Hag. Obviously, linked highly and a huge amount recently in the last few weeks at least. Apparently interviews have happened. And we just want to get to know a little bit more about him. I think obviously he's been the talk of the last 2 to 3 years at least, has done incredible things at Ajax. But just give me a little bit about yourself first, Mike.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Marc. So I'm Michael Statham. I'm a writer, tweeter. I do all sorts of things for Football at Anya, which is the biggest English language of source of Dutch football. So if you're into podcasts, if you're into the Dutch league, if you're into the Dutch national team, then come and check us out because we've got lots of things there for you. I've been watching the Dutch league, Dutch national team for around a decade now. So I've seen Ten Hag sort of develop really over the past 10 years.
Excellent stuff. And you've, I see you did a bit with BBC as well, a couple of times.
Yeah, so most recently there was a piece to do with Ajax and their Champions League run. Hasn't aged all that well because I said that Ajax were one of the favourites to win the Champions League and they got knocked out against Benfica. But there are reasons for that, which I'm sure we'll talk about in this. It was quite a surprise they got knocked out. But yeah, I've been following Ten Hag closely and I've been speaking about him a bit.
Excellent stuff. Yeah, I think I don't think you were wrong actually. I think Ajax were deemed one of the favourites, and they play some very exciting stuff. So obviously, as I said, there's quite a highly likelihood. I think there's him and maybe a couple of other candidates. Is obviously the name on most Man United fans' lips. Certainly mine. I'm a huge fan of him. Obviously, tried to learn a lot about him over the last couple of years at least. But what do you think he will bring to United? I know that's a very broad question, but what do you think? A few things for me is obviously I know that Ajax don't tend to spend a lot of money. They rely heavily on their youth system, which United as a club are proud to talk about as well. That's kind of our roots, but we have also spent a lot of money over the last 10 years, definitely probably on the wrong acquisitions in a lot of respects. But what do you think he will bring to the table?
Well, when I interviewed a few of his players in the past, and one of the first ones I interviewed for Ajax was Dennis Johnson. He was a youth player who didn't make it in the end, but one of his first remarks about Erik Ten Hag was that he's really strict, and it was funny coming from that player because he was someone who never quite got his head down enough. So him saying that about Ten Hag shows that he does bring a lot of respect to some big characters. Ajax got some big characters, and whilst I agree with you that Ajax are known for bringing their youth players through, they have in recent years actually been able to spend some cash because of their Champions League runs and backed by Donny Van Der Beek, Marc Overmars, who is no longer involved with the club. The money they had from that, they were able to, for once, Ajax, to spend some money on some players who are in their mid-20s, late 20s, and at the primes of their careers, keeping younger players for longer as well. Big pluses when you're in Dutch football because that doesn't often happen. And that's part of the reason why Erik Ten Hag has been able to get this Ajax team to succeed. The fact that there is this money all of a sudden. So, that was not all of it though. Ten Hag is someone who's a big character. He's going to, I think, be able to take on some of the bigger characters despite not really having that name because he's not one of the best managers in Europe, you would say at the moment. He's not got this reputation yet, but he's got promise. For me, one of the biggest things that sticks out, I know I keep saying we'll talk about the Champions League exit, but that exit this year made me think that Ten Hag will go now rather than later, because if he has another season like this one, where he gets, say, knocked out in the group stages or the last 16 of the Champions League, that's going to actually hinder his reputation. At the moment, he's got a really good one. And I think him going now has got to happen. And one of the only jobs available for his liking would be Manchester United.
Yeah, absolutely. And you obviously it has come out recently. Obviously, Donny Van Der Beek said he wouldn't step in their way. I think the fee that they'd have to pay is significantly lower than what they would have to pay for someone like Pochettino. But do you think he would be interested in the job and would find it an exciting project?
He keeps insisting that he'd only leave for the right job. It's all got a match. He's quite stubborn, Ten Hag, and I think he's only got a select number of clubs he would possibly go to. Whether Man United be one of them, I'm not sure. He likes the idea of a project, but with Man United being so unstable like recent years, I just don't know if it quite appeals to him. I think if the Bayern Munich job came up tomorrow, he'd be straight out the door and wanting to go there. So yeah, I think it's a kind of a poison chalice as well entering into Man United. If you do the same as other previous coaches, where it doesn't quite work out for you, then what does he do then? Where does he go from there? He's only got limited amount of jobs available, where he's at the top of Europe again. So I think the idea of taking it back to scratch and starting all over again and being there for a long time is what does appeal to Ten Hag. Having some money would be great for him. He's great at developing young players too, though. So those two things coming together might make him right for the job. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think he wants a job like this, but he wants a bit of reassurance, assurances. I'm sure that he gets a bit longer in the job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is obviously United fans aren't silly when it comes to these things. We know that the structure's very poor. We know that recruitment's been really poor. A lot of the recruitments that have been made over the last few years have been for commercial value and not the players that really the team needs. And I'm glad you sort of spoke about that, because he has had the right people with him, Erik at Ajax, and Edwin van der Sar, very good at his job, and we haven't got that. And I know that United are trying to put the right people in place, but it's been 10 years too late. They seem to be very slow at doing those things, and it is a huge worry for me that if he does come in, he does want to bring his philosophy, and he's going to bring. He's made some great recruitments. I mean, he lost De Ligt, De Jong, Van Der Beek, all quality players, and has been able to bring in players to replace those players and continue with the philosophy and the work ethic that he's obviously had at Ajax, and that is a big concern for me. The way that I see it as well, I am a fan of Poch, I'm a fan of Erik Ten Hag, I'm a fan of Luis Enrique, but I do worry that if United weren't to get Ten Hag now, then he would probably go to Man City, and that would be bigger problems. I think Man City ran annoyingly incredibly well, and to have footballing brains at their club, to be able to spend the money that they can, I think he would thrive there, and that's my biggest worry. And I just hope United makes that good. Brings him in and makes that good choice in the end. Get your comments in, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. Obviously, that's huge. Reese here with some great comments coming in. Welcome, Michael, to the Weekly Armchair. We're so glad to have you on today. Absolutely adore Ten Hag and his footballing ideas and approach to the game. I think there were a number of questions about Bruno Fernandez as well. I think that obviously Bruno Fernandez has been absolutely sensational, as you may probably absolutely know, for United over the last few years. He's there's reports that he will sign a new contract, a new 5-year deal very, very soon. And I think it was a lot of United's fan worried that he may not fit into an Ajax type system. He's more of a ball progressor as opposed to someone like Donny Van Der Beek in a number 10, where he sort of creates moves and creates that space for other players. Bruno isn't so good at that. So do you think that Bruno Fernandez is a player that could be instilled into a system of his?
I think he's got to make it work, hasn't he? If you have that kind of player, you find a way for it to work. I'm sure that Ten Hag would insist upon a 4-3-3 though, given it's what he's been doing so well. And that kind of allows Fernandez to have flexibility in the way he plays in the system as well. I don't think it has to be so rigid. And people forget that players like Van der Beek may well come back, and if Ten Hag is in charge, he'd want to find a way for Van der Beek to get into the team. And there's lots of possibilities. I mean, people have to have a set 11, and you can be flexible then with what you do with that. Yeah, I think Fernandez would find a place in the team, because the 4-3-3, it has all sorts of fluid attacking moves. The wingers are so important with that. Ten Hag recently, in the last couple of years, has got loads of crosses into the box with the system he's tried to put in, because teams play such a low block that it kind of works with getting mistakes out of them. And the players that are in midfield, they just load the box, and they're able to be really quick on the ball, creating the opportunities, creating the space. It's something that Ten Hag actually picked up from Pep Guardiola. when he was working with him at Bayern Munich around, about 8 years ago now. So you can see that was his kind of person he was learning from. Yeah, the Man City link is pretty easy to make because of that. And you can see him maybe succeeding Guardiola, but I don't think there's a set answer at the minute. Ten Hag doesn't know what's going on. He's talked to Man United, but there's actually reliable sort of sources coming out, Ajax links, saying that Ten Hag might actually see out his contract. It's not as if he's got to leave this summer.
And how long's his contract for now?
There's another year next year.
Okay. Great stuff. Reece, him and I have actually spoken about this before. He feels, as you can see down the bottom here, by trading into a wide number 10, which I think he would do with Fernandez. So rather than playing his normal number 10 role, probably play him out to the left or to the right slightly. Yeah. Do you think that he could maybe do that in order to fit him into the system?
Well, that's what I was thinking, because Hakim Ziyech, when he was with Ajax, he played sometimes as a defensive midfielder, which is remarkable when I think about. And then he would play as a 10, then as a right winger in the end in the system that he played. And Ziyech was just really influential from whatever position that he played. You've got someone like Steven Berghuis, who's one of the best right wingers in the Netherlands. Didn't translate for him at Watford, but playing out on the right wing was always a position that he played. And now he's thriving as a number 10 under Ten Hag, and he played it for the Netherlands last night. So he's taken players who have got all of this potential and ability on the ball, and it's just slightly tweaked the position they played in, and it's really worked well for them.
So yeah, speaking of players with potential, Scott McTominay obviously plays in a back three for Scotland, thrives there, and the reason why he thrives there is because he's able to bring himself into a better cover shadow. Now, as a central defensive midfielder for United, which he tends to play a little bit more, and he's got better with under Ralph Rangnick, his cover shadow has been a little bit poor. Now, I know from Erik Ten Hag's philosophy, he likes to have a central defensive midfielder that will overload the flanks and create and have a good cover shadow in order for players to be able to diagonally pass, and they work their way up either wings. Yeah. Now, do you think that a CDM could be something that he might want to bring in, or do you think he could maybe convert McTominay in order to do that better?
Again, I come back to flexibility, that he might want to do that sometimes, he might not, depending on the team he's playing. If he's got a really tough side to play against, yes, a CDM he'll be looking at. But other times, if he's got to go and win a game, then I think what he does at Ajax is he just has his midfielders that do so much, and they get forward a lot. And quite recently, no, I won't say that one first. I think I'm just going to go back a couple of years. Frenkie de Jong, when he was with Ajax, he played him at centre-back a few times. It didn't work because de Jong wasn't defensively solid enough at all, too lightweight for that position. And yet he just tried him there because he thought, well, if I'm going to be pushing up the pitch and trying to win 3 or 4-0 most games, then why not have de Jong at centre-back? I've got players out injured. Let's give it a go. And he can be influential from deep from there. And whilst he worked on the ball, off the ball, it was terrible. And recently, Ryan Havenberg played at centre back for a few minutes when they were chasing a game that was 2-2. They had to get a winner late on, and Havenberg got it because he put the ball in the top corner, and they won 3-2. So yeah, occasionally you might put a midfielder at centre back, but I think looking at the physicality of the Premier League, I'm not sure he'd want to do that. He wouldn't be playing 5 at the back either. So yeah, you're looking at a CDM really if you're playing against a tough opponent.
Yeah, and I think Fred is also someone that's improved, certainly in the last few months under Ralph. Quite a high-pressing player, which obviously Erik does like to play as well. So it would be hopefully a smooth transition from Ralph to him. And Fred could potentially play that role, but it's just trying to be a bit more tactically astute from a defensive point of view. But I'm sure that he would be able to adapt to that. A question here from Reese. Would Ten Hag look to sign players such as Timber, Alvarez or Antony? Antony's been absolutely sensational on that right-hand side, obviously replacing Ziyech. If he got the United job, or would he do a Pep and not sign from his former club?
Wow. Depends on the player, depends what Man United need. I think Ten Hag would be afraid to do it, but I don't see him going in for 2 or 3 players at once. He might go for the one, I'd say. Ajax looking to trying to keep some of those players in any case. I don't think they'll just let them all go at once this summer. Those 3 you mentioned there, I don't see them all going. I actually think Anthony might stay. Alvarez, I don't think would match up to the Premier League pace and tempo. I'm not sure of that. Timber's the most likely, but Timber has a flaw, it seems, this season. That whilst he's physically brilliant and he's just an excellent defender on the ground, I don't think he's that great in the air. And it's come up a bit recently. Ajax Champions League defeat to Benfica. He lost out in the air to a big, tall striker. How many big, tall strikers are there in the Premier League? And there was a worry now that playing with the Netherlands, would he be a centre-back suitable for a back four? We're actually unsure of that. He'd be better as a right-back or better as a centre-back as part of a five.
Yeah, good points, well made. And I think we're going to be looking at a centre-back. I think there's been question marks over Harry Maguire, but he is very good in the air, Harry Maguire, and I do think he's been unfairly criticised on a number of occasions this season. We've seen the ability that he has, and obviously, hopefully, he comes back into that form. But I don't know enough about Timber, and would he be someone that would be better suited slotting alongside Maguire, or would he be better suited to Varane or Lindelof even?
Yeah, he needs to have as I said, someone taller and stronger in the air, because that is something that's been picked up, I think, this season about Timber. It's something he could possibly change, but one thing he can't change is his height. He can't get any taller. And him and Lisandro Martinez, they're not actually really taller than 6 foot, and they're both playing together. I've said that I've complimented them already that they're brilliant defenders in other aspects of their games, and they're physically very, very strong. But it's how they get on in the air, and I'm not sure really whether it's something which teams target. And another thing I should say as well, that what's happened lately with Ajax's defence is that they've been keeping all these clean sheets this season. It was going extremely, extremely well, and now they've only kept 1 clean sheet in their last 7 games in all competitions. This tight defence that for only around half the Eredivisie season, I only conceded 5 goals around 20, 22 games, and now only keep 1 clean sheet in 7. It's just a complete upside down turnaround of how a defence is doing. I don't think it's necessarily the goalkeeper for all of that. I think it is actually the defence, and that Ten Hag has been guilty of sending way too many players forward in his tactics. He remarked when they play a Champions League game that they should have at least 3 players back, and that both so you can't have both fullbacks going forward at the same time, nor can you have a centre back and a fullback attacking if you've only got 2 players back. But for me, I don't think it was just that. I think Ten Hag has to get a stronger grip on managing games, because it's fine going forward and attacking and being entertaining, but it was making them very leaky.
Yeah, obviously that's been a concern over the years, or at least certainly in the last couple of seasons for United as well. We seem to, under Ollie, for example, there were question marks over that exactly, and obviously we would overload going forward and struggle, and we've certainly had that recently. We seem to struggle at the back. But listen, football's a cyclical thing, to be honest, and Erik has shown many times. I mean, to score that many goals and only concede 5 in that many games is unbelievable. Yeah. And sometimes I think teams just kind of suss you out and then approach it differently, and it just means that you've just got to revolutionise and change it up to make sure that doesn't happen again. So we will have to see. Lots of question marks as well. I think United probably need to sign about 6 or so players, but the right back position being a bit of an issue. Question marks over Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I think, he was fantastic in his first season. I think he's a very good player, but just lacks a little bit more going forward. Now, of course, we have Dalot that has a bit more attacking prowess about him, but do you think that could be an area that Ten Hag looks at? I don't think he probably will like Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and I don't know if Dalot will be quite the player he's looking for. I think there's talks about, excuse the pronunciation, but Mazraoui, the right back for Ajax now, going to Barcelona perhaps. But do you think that's something that he might look at as well?
Well, yeah, Mazraoui he's available on a free contract. So whoever can get in there first for who I think is a brilliant right back. Can't wait to see how he gets on at the top level in Europe. Because in the Champions League, Mazraoui's really stood out. I'm not trying to make up rumours here, but I think that it would make sense Ten Hag going to Man United and Mazraoui going with him to improve a position. Yeah, I'd love to see that. I think with him possibly going to Barcelona, that I'm not sure of that at the moment. Barcelona having supposedly financial issues. They're looking players that are cheaper. But they got Serginho Dest, and he already signed from Ajax as a fullback. I think it'd be hard to see Mazraoui going in there ahead of Dest straight away. But yeah, Mazraoui, great player. Really like him.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And yeah, next, obviously, I wanted to talk about you alluded to it earlier at the beginning of the show, Ajax getting knocked out, and your thoughts on that. I expected them to go a little bit further. I didn't expect them to lose against Benfica, and quite honestly, I think they would have given their next opponents, Liverpool, more of a run for the money. They're playing Liverpool next, I think, aren't they? Benfica. So yeah, really surprised by that. But what were your thoughts on that in general?
Well, they started the first leg away from home really strongly. They got a 2-1 lead at half time. It's going well. They should maybe have scored more. That's the thing. They've been creating so many chances, and they should have scored more than 2 in the away leg. They didn't know it was a daft goal. I think it's giveaway for 2-2, and the second half they were just run over by intensity, high tempo football. Which is a shame, because I actually should have managed that game better. I think that, as I said, that is a criticism of mine of Ten Hag in that game, that he should have managed that a little better. You can't always go and attack in Europe. There were actually Dutch football pundits that warned of that in the group stages, that whilst it worked so well then, can you really do that against a Man City? Well, it didn't work against Benfica, a team that they're actually better than on paper for me. Then in the home leg, it was a really flat evening. They just couldn't create an actual golden opportunity. Benfica sat in and defended a lot. They were very wily in the way they did that. So you can compliment Benfica on that, but I actually be better. They've played against low blocks a million times this season. It's something that they can do. But I think nerves just got to them, and maybe the fact they thought they could just turn up and win that game. Then they conceded a header from a free kick that shouldn't have been, but the header wasn't dealt with by the goalkeeper nor Timber. So they've entered this poor run of form, and I think it just came at the wrong time. Jurgen Klopp has mentioned in the past, you've got to learn to lose at the right time, and Ajax couldn't do that then. They actually managed to lose the game, which was so important to their season. Their Champions League run is what makes their season, why their players are there. And to have that excellent group stage run, to go and get knocked out in the last 16 Benfica really hurts. It hurts Dutch fans as a whole, because Dutch clubs have had such a great season, 5 teams getting to knockout rounds, and Ajax getting knocked out so soon was not what people expected.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, they're obviously top of the league. What is really refreshing to see is they've scored 80 goals in 27 games, and they've only conceded 13. They're only 2 points in front of PSV, but do you think they're probably most likely to win the league this year?
They're most likely to win it, but if they go on their current form, where they've won their last 3 league games by 3-2, with the winning goal being scored in like the last 5 minutes each time, then you're starting to wonder whether they might actually lose out here. And PSV have ticked along nicely, winning games against mid-table sides, and I just wouldn't be surprised at this point to see PSV overtake them, because Ajax lost to go-ahead Eagles, and then went on they won these 3 games where they should have dropped points in each of the 3 of them. Really, they shouldn't be top at this point because of that.
Yeah,
but yes,
sometimes it's have a bit of luck on your side is nice. You know, United have had that many times over the years, Fergie years and all sorts. So, and sometimes that's what it's about, and sometimes that kind of separates the best teams from the not so best. But yeah, certainly lucky in those last 3 games. A question on everybody's lips again: Donny Van Der Beek. I am a massive fan of that man. And I want nothing more than for him to thrive and do well at United, and even Everton now. He hasn't had the easiest couple of years and left out the side a lot, but was fantastic at Ajax, and hasn't really set the world light at Everton either. But do you think this could be a bit of a rejuvenation for him if Erik Ten Hag comes in?
Yeah, I really hope so for him, because I like him too, and it's a shame that at Everton it hasn't worked out for him either at the moment. I don't think he's had many good performances there either. So poor Van Der Beek. Yeah, he's had to suffer through that and struggle through it. It sounded like he was getting very frustrated by being left out. But he's someone who's going to keep trying, I'm sure. But if he doesn't get Ten Hag in the summer, will he leave and just try something different? I think that's what we're likely to see. He needs someone like Ten Hag to come in and say, you're gonna play for my side. Although Solskjaer said that, and that didn't really work out either. So I'm not sure if Van Der Beek can trust the manager anymore.
No, I'm sure he's not in the best of places. He's been poorly treated, not by Ollie
No, it is.
necessarily. I think Manchester United on a whole have treated him quite abysmally, and I absolutely rate him. I really do. I think he plays some wonderful football, and every time he does play, whilst he doesn't. A lot of fans will say, "Oh, he hasn't played brilliantly," or whatever, and they're expecting goals. It's what he does off the ball that's sensational, and he does it a lot. So even though he's not deemed to have a good game, his work rate off the ball is absolutely incredible. Keane's got a question here. Morning, Mike. Keane here. When it's Ten Hag's philosophy about playing youth, United's academy has been blossoming in the last 2 years. Does he promote youth often? I know we did speak about this earlier in the show, but if you could just answer that one, that'd be fab.
Yeah, I think just clarifying about the youth. I actually been knowing it for a long time. They still do bring youth players through, but I think the last few years, not as many have been given that chance. I think that's it. Give them the chance. They've not been given a few games in the team to prove themselves. However, you have to note players that have come through the last couple of years. Divine Wrench is a right back. He's still very young, and whilst he's not a starter, he's given opportunity. He's given games if there are injuries. Ryan Havenberg has broken through. He may well be off to Bayern Munich this summer. Disagree with him trying to do that. Timber coming through and doing so well. I'm sure that more players will be given opportunities. And looking at United, I'm sure he'll do the same kind of thing, bringing 1 or 2 players in, but only those ones that are really standing out. Players get the opportunities to play professionally for young Ajax, and they play in the Dutch second tier. And then if they really progress and they impress, then they come into the first team, and they play often in the cup matches, I know, with Ajax, and that's what Ten Hag likes to do. He throws them in the cup matches, and if they stand out, give them another opportunity, kind of off the bench. And if it's an injury, they get to play. But unlike before, where they would just say, lose a player in the summer, and then say, you're going to be next, you're going to get the starting position at the start of the season, prove yourself. And then it was like a sink or swim situation. There's a player who's currently waiting for that, and that's Kenneth Taylor, who's another midfielder who may well come through, break through, and impress everybody, or he won't get his breakthrough and not make it. Like a couple of the others, I think, in recent years, who just haven't been given that opportunity that they would have got with Ajax, say 4 or 5 years ago, before they were an absolute monster in Europe. When I say monster, I mean compared to previous years for Dutch football sides, because they've been so poor in Europe before.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I think up until the last couple of years, it was a little bit like that at United. There's a lot of huge talent that comes through, and only a very small amount of players obviously make it. And I think that does happen everywhere. But at the moment, in the last couple of years, we've really had a plethora of really exciting young players to watch. And I think that United, if they were smart, could probably utilise that a little bit. We've spoken about the right-back position. I think the left-back position probably needs looking at too. We've got Ethan Laird that we absolutely love. We think he's an exceptional player. Has had issues with injuries. You've got Bruno Fernandez on the left-hand side, looks really, really good. And then players like Hannibal, Medjbury and people and other players like that. And I really hope that obviously if Ten Hag does come in, he will utilise that as well as obviously utilising the money that's at his disposal. So that'll be interesting to see. My final question for you is more of a goalkeeper thing. I absolutely love David De Gea, as I'm sure most Manchester United fans do. However, I don't feel that he is necessarily very commanding. And I think that actually last season when you saw Henderson between the sticks, he was a lot more vocal, would shorten the gap where the defenders had to run because he'd be coming out a little bit more and give them a little bit more confidence. If Erik does come in, who do you think he's more likely to utilise in comparison to their number one now? Would it be David De Gea, or do you think it could be Henderson?
I think he'd more likely stick with De Gea. You want to see him both in training and make his own decision. With comparisons to Ajax, I think people know about Andre Onana. They've certainly heard of him. He was the Ajax goalkeeper for a long time before he had the doping issue, and he's only just come back in, but has been making mistakes. But Onana was imperious for Ajax for a long time, and he was someone who's very commanding, very brave, would make brash decisions. He'd come out of his goal, but quite often get there and you'd get the ball back. It was amazing to watch, really entertaining. But then since then, he's gone for a lot of experience. So Stekelenburg was a goalkeeper for a little while. This season, it's been Pasveer. Their goalkeepers late into their 30s. Pasveer was an interesting one. He wasn't, I don't think, meant to be the first goalkeeper this season, but has actually ended up being that. But he came from Vitesse, and he had a great season the season before last. And I don't know. I think the experience, did it work? Did it not? Well, they kept a little clean sheets at the start of the season. A couple of times the goalkeeper's been criticised towards the end of this one. So I think he'd just see them in both in training and take it from there. But I do think that if De Gea is going to be staying around the club, then it would be him.
Yeah, and I think there are talks that he might sign a new deal actually. So possibly, and to be honest with you, if it is going to be Erik Ten Hag after the interview, and they are, if it's him and they are getting players like Bruno and David De Gea to sign new contracts, then it may well be that they're the type of players that he will use and utilise and instill into the system. One last question here, then I've got one more quickly, and then we'll wrap up. But I really appreciate your time today, Michael. It's been excellent and really good to get a bit more of an insight. Would Ten Hag look to implement his style on Man United's academy teams for smooth transition to the first team, or leave it as it is and coach the players once they come through?
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be much of like a transition, does it, to the first team at the moment, like you have at Ajax, because they're playing the Dutch second tier. You ain't ever going to quite get that in England, but surely the loan system was how you're going to do it. And Ajax have done that in the past. They have sent players out on loan to sides in the division, and they've then used that as their acid test, whether they're good or not, enough or not. Yeah, I think Ten Hag will have an eye on that. He's not someone, like I said, who's known for reliably buying players in and everything else. He's a manager of a couple of other Dutch sides as well. Let's not forget, he started off at Go Ahead Eagles 10 years ago, and he got them promotion in his first season from the Dutch second tier. He also coached Utrecht, finished fourth with them, and that's a good achievement if you're manager of Utrecht. He also had a few youth players there as well. He managed to get through to the first team and move on for big money. There's a different kind of culture at Man United. Of course, if you're good enough in the youth academy, you're not going to be sold on. But he has this eye for developing players, whether they're young or whether they're actually in their mid-20s. He'll find a way of developing you somehow, and he'll have a different idea. And quite often it's worked for him.
Fantastic stuff. Well, we will have to see what happens in the next few weeks. I think United may be making some sensible decisions and hoping to announce somebody within the next few weeks. So time will only tell. I have one last question for you. What do you think, with what you've read and the rumours and the reliability of certain media, what do you think the percentage of Ten Hag to United is, in your opinion?
I think the percentage of him leaving Ajax, first of all, is quite high, 70-80% for me. I don't know why he'd want to stay another year when this season, for me, was the season that he was going to get Ajax to go really far in Europe, reliably. They had that amazing run to the semis before, but that, for me, was because of teams that they beat were a little poorer, and they had a nice collection of youth players at the side that were incredible. Mm-hmm. But this time felt like they built a team, they kept everyone together, and we were really going to go for it. It didn't work out. So I'm wondering whether he goes, I'm going to quit while I'm ahead, I'm going to go, and what jobs are available? Oh, Man United, a team you've been linked to for years. You've got the links to Van der Sar. What happens there? I don't see Van der Sar going with him, by the way. I think that will be too much change for Ajax. I think it's quite high, really. You know, it's at least 50-50. What else is available for him? The talks have begun already. Ajax got knocked out of the Champions League, so the rumours are true that he has been talking to them, and this has begun the process of what he will do next. But with a journalist actually coming out literally yesterday and saying that the chances are also good that he stays at Ajax, and there was a quote, was like, he just stays at Ajax, and that is it, because he's got another year in his contract. You know, he's gonna always respect that contract. Then he may well do so. He has been proud and actually quite motivated of the challenge of winning the league, the cup every season with Ajax. improving them in Europe, seeing that as a challenge, pushing boundaries on what Ajax can do, that has appealed to Ten Hag. But I don't see how he can be extra motivated to go on another season, given that this season was the big one.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. Listen, as I said, thank you for everybody in the comments as well. Really great questions there, and make sure you like and subscribe. Obviously, as I said earlier, very important. But Michael, I really appreciate your time giving it half an hour up to us on Sunday morning. So thank you so much, and a real eye opener and some great information. So really appreciate that. I'd love to get you on again sometime, maybe if he does join, and we can talk about him a little bit more, maybe into next season if he is here. But we'll see in the next few weeks. As I said, thank you very much. I hope you've all had good weekends so far, and enjoy the rest of your Sundays, and we'll see you next time.